Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is for whenever you're watching this. I'm Mr. Atterbury, and today's lesson we're going to go over is integer review. Okay, so we're going to talk about positives and negatives and how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide them. So first let's take a look at our first problem. Okay, so taking a look here is we are adding, and you should jot these notes down, all right? So integer review. So if we're adding two numbers, like let's say 3 plus 8, okay, 3 and 8 adds to 11. If those signs were both negative, like a negative 3 and negative 8, they would add to a negative 11, okay? So the general rule we like to say is same sign, add and keep. So if it's both positive, obviously it's a positive answer when you add it together. If they're both negative, it'll be a negative answer when you add them together, but you still add the two numbers together. So 3 plus 8 is 11, so negative 3 and negative 8 would be a negative 11. It gets a little trickier, however, when you have different signs. So with different signs, you subtract them, but you keep the sign of the bigger number. When I mean bigger number, I mean the number that's furthest from 0, right? Like 6 is bigger than 5, and if you think of a number line, 6 is more spaces away than 5 is to 0. Like 100 is more spaces away from 0 than like 10. But like negative 100 is the same space as positive 100 to 0, like on a number line. Okay, you have like numbers and then numbers with like a 0, and then numbers for the negatives, right? Think about the space that number is away from 0, and that's what I mean by a bigger number. So like 5 is 5 spaces away from 0, while negative 1 is just 1 space away from 0. So keep that in mind when I say a bigger number. So different signs, subtract, but keep the sign of the bigger number. So 5 plus negative 1 equals 4, because we subtract 5, take away 1 equals 4. The bigger number is 5, so 5 is positive, the answer is positive 4. Now that might be kind of easy for you, and that's great, but let's take a look at what happens when the 5 is actually the negative instead of the 1. So the same rules apply. We subtract them. We have a negative 5 plus a positive 1, so we have different signs. So we're going to subtract them. We're going to say 5 minus 1, which equals 4. But the bigger number 5 was the negative, so it's a negative 4. Okay? 5 is the bigger number. All right. Same sign, add and keep. Different sign, subtract. Keep the sign of the bigger number, then you'll be exact. All right. Multiplying and dividing. When you're multiplying two positives, you get a positive. If you multiply two negatives, you also get a positive. Okay? So that's one trick. One way people memorize it is if they're both the same sign. So two positives. Okay? Two positives or two negatives equal a positive. But if you have different signs, that's where it's negative. So for example, like 3 times 4 we know is 12. But a negative 3 and a positive 4 would be a negative 12. But if they were both negative, you would have a positive 12. Okay, the way I kind of see it is when you have two negatives, they basically cancel out, and so it becomes a positive. But if you don't have that second negative, you only have the one negative, then it just stays negative. Okay, regardless of which number is bigger or smaller. When this one, it doesn't matter. These rules are different than these rules. Okay, completely different rules. With adding, same signs, add and keep. Different signs, subtract. Keep sign a bigger number, then you'll be exact. But with multiplying, okay, and dividing, these are actually just completely different concepts. Okay? Now, we haven't gone over two things, okay? We haven't gone over division. Division's super easy. It's the exact same rules from multiplication to division. So dividing two positives, it's positive. Dividing two negatives is actually positive, like they cancel out. But if you're doing division and one of them, doesn't matter, numerator or denominator, right, the top or the bottom, if you divide them, the result, the answer would be negative if you have one negative and one positive, okay? But the rules for subtracting are a little bit different than adding, so I devoted one whole page just to that, and we're going to discuss that right now. So how to do subtraction. We're going to think about this for a moment, okay? Think about 7 minus 4. Let's think about 7 minus 4 for just a moment. 7 minus 4 is something you might have been doing since like first grade, okay? 7 take away 4 is equal to 3. Like if your mom comes home from the store with 7 donuts and you eat 4 of them, you've got 3. Okay? If you're running laps in the track and you're going to do 7 laps and you've already done 4 laps, how many do you have left? You've got 3 laps left. Okay? I think a lot of us can do this in our head. We've probably been doing it for a long time. This is one of those concepts that you've just been doing it for a while, and that's okay. Okay? But there's some rules that if you understand the rules, then there should never be a question or hesitation, or you shouldn't get these wrong once you kind of really understand these rules. Okay, and the rule I like to do with subtraction is just to change every subtraction to an addition. One more time. Every subtraction problem I change to an addition problem. And if you know the rules of addition from the previous page, then you will get every subtraction problem right if you change it, okay? There's a process. You have to change it to an addition problem. So the first number stays the same. The subtraction sign gets pushed to the second number as a negative. Okay, if it was positive, like the positive 4, it becomes negative. If it was a negative, it would actually become a positive. You'd switch the sign, okay? But you put the plus sign there, okay? So you get rid of the subtraction and you make the plus sign, but you change the sign of the second number, okay? And you will get the same answer. 7 minus 4 is 3, just like 7 plus a negative 4 is 3. So if you see every single subtraction problem from this day forward as an addition problem of the negative the second number, okay? You will always get it right 100% of the time, okay? So let's take a look at these two examples, okay? 8 take away a negative 3. 8 minus 3. Okay, and this one comes up sort of a lot, problems just like this. Okay, so we take that minus sign of subtraction, okay? We push it to the second number and we change that sign. So the subtraction becomes an addition problem, a plus sign, and that negative 3 becomes a positive 3. Just like this positive 4 became a negative 4, remember I used the words, you change the sign, so I take this negative 3 and I make it a positive 3. Okay, one thing I've heard students say is 2 sticks make a plus. So 2 sticks, you take something like 2 pens, okay, you got 2 sticks, you can make a plus sign. Okay, and it gets rid of all the negatives. So 8 take away negative 3 equals 11, so I'm going to change that to a plus and a positive to make 8 plus 3. Now it's a really simple problem. Look at that. Simple. Where that looks really complex, right? That looks really, really complex, but that looks much better. So let's take a look at this last one here, and I'm actually going to add one more problem at the end. So negative 1 minus a negative 4. Remember our rules. Keep the first number, change the subtraction to a plus, and then change the sign of the second number. So that negative 4 becomes a positive 4. And now we have negative 1 plus 4, which equals 3. Okay, different signs. Subtract. 4 minus 1 equals 3. The bigger number is 4. Positive 4, so the answer is going to be positive, so it's a positive 3. We're done. So let's do one last problem. I'm going to take the same problem, but I'm going to switch the numbers up. I'm going to, instead of 7 minus 4, I'm going to do 4 minus 7. I see a lot of students miss this one. In their heads they go, oh, it's 3, I know it, done, move on. And guess what? That's wrong. Okay? It's not completely wrong. I wouldn't say you don't know what you're doing, but I'm going to say it's wrong because the answer is actually a negative 3, not a positive 3. And you might say, well, it's the same thing, negative 3, positive 3. But it's like, is it different if someone owes you money versus someone, maybe you owe someone else money? Is that different? Yeah, it's way different. Okay? So let's take a look at the rules. Take this minus sign, make it a plus, but change the sign of the second number. Okay? So, keep the first number, 4. Change that subtraction to a plus, but I'm going to make that positive 7 and now negative 7. So what are the rules when you add two numbers and there's a positive and negative? Well, you subtract it. You got 4 plus a negative 7. If I subtract 7 and 4, I get 3. But bigger number is 7. It's the negative, so it's a negative 3. All right, so adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, positives and negatives. Okay, subtraction, do this process. Keep it, change it, flip that sign. It's the same rules of adding. Okay, they're both positive or both negative, you add them and keep the sign. If you're adding and one's positive, one's negative, okay, they have different signs, you subtract them and keep the sign of the biggest number. Biggest meaning it's the furthest from 0. So like 5 is further from 0 than 1 is. Okay, whether it's positive or negative, the 5 is a bigger number, okay? And then lastly, multiplying, dividing, same exact rules as each other, but they're different than adding and subtracting, okay? So for multiplying, 2 positives make a positive and 2 negatives make a positive. But when you only have 1 negative, 1 positive, that's when it equals a negative, okay? So, thank you very much for checking out this video. My name is Mr. Atterbury. Hopefully you learned a lot about adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing integers. And if you didn't learn a lot, maybe you already knew a lot. So thanks for watching anyways, and you have a great rest of your day. All right, bye.